Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Mary Grace Show. I am Mary Grace, the voice of sanity to help you navigate politics, culture, wellness, faith, and world events. And we are here today with one of our favorite shows, and this is Ask the Doctor with our friend Dr. Troy Spurrill. He is a functional medicine specialist, and he is the CEO and founder of the Synapse Center for Health and Healing up in Minnesota. He works with patients all over the country and in many parts of the world. And we're going to have a great discussion today. As we are waiting to see if everything actually went live, um, I'm going to remind people that if you didn't get the notification, if you're not seeing that we were live and you're coming back later for the replay, there's one way to remedy that, and that is to go to my website, marygracemedia.com, and sign up for the mailing list. Get on the mailing list, get our emails, and we will send out an email before we do shows like this so that you never miss an episode. The other thing I want to ask you to do is to make sure you click on the X link on my website and on the Rumble link and sign up for those channels and turn on notifications. The reason that's so important is because as we go into the coming year, as we talk about more and more topics of consequence, I have a feeling that Facebook and YouTube are going to double down on censorship. And that's a sad thing in this day and age, but it happened just the other day. I had a renowned virologist and scientist on my show talking about things that took place in 2020 and beyond. Facebook has completely vaporized that episode. It's gone. There's no trace of it. You were probably watching on Facebook if you're in my Facebook audience, and you may have gone back to look for it. You can't find it. There's no trace of it. There's no notification from Facebook that they took it down. They just disappeared it. And so this is real. We're in a real information war. And when I ask you to go and follow me on these other platforms, it's because this is not the first time we've experienced this, and I don't think it will be the last. So again, I appreciate all of the support on Facebook and on YouTube. Absolutely love all of you. And I want to see you going forward. So please go to those other platforms and support us over there as well so that you never miss a show. We want to bring you the truth, and we want to do it in a way where we don't have to filter and self censor. So, with that being said, let's get into our topic today. It's always good to be able to have Dr. Troy here because he not only does he give us amazing, useful information, but he answers your questions. And so, if you know somebody that needs to be a part of this conversation, please share it with them now because the questions and answers happen during the live stream, not after the fact. He doesn't come back and answer questions on the replay. Dr. Troy, Dr. Troy, we really truly appreciate you being here. I want to talk a little bit about something that's on my mind, and that is going into the holidays. We're already in the holidays. You know, Thanksgiving already happened. It's a time when people have a lot of emotions,
Yeah.
there's a lot of eating, there's a lot of social interaction, some of it very stressful, and sometimes people deal with it in different ways. Beverages, food, it can take a toll on our health. Um, I wanted to just get you to speak to that and to help people have some strategies to navigate the holidays and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually seeing quite a bit of stress and dysfunction this year, a little bit more than normal when it comes to just people being stressed, whether it be just Christmas shopping and trying to get things done. We've just had a lot of people say they're being overwhelmed by the season, and it's different reasons. We know that 80% of people, if you're going to gain weight in any given year, 80% of people gain their weight between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then they never lose it. So that is pretty. That's been common throughout all of time. But this season's a little different. A lot of people were on highs from the election. A lot of people are actually who weren't on that side were very dismayed by the election. But regardless of where your outcome was, people have gone through a lot of trauma in the last 4 years, and this season Some people are celebrating it without loved ones that were there.
Mhm.
Seeing a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of trauma coming through, a lot of stress. And so the traditional stressful season's always been there, and people, always go back and say we have to remember the reason for the season, which is 100% true. And we're in a time where it's getting back to the foundational things of we gather at Christmas to be with family, not to get presents and just be giving presents for people that aren't showing up. It's important for people to get together during this season and be a part of family and friends. So I encourage people to actually do that as much as possible. There's a lot of fractured relationships because of the last 4 years, because of the politics. And so that makes it a little bit harder of a season.
Mhm.
Add it
Mhm.
all up. We are in the beginning, the precipice of just extreme change that is much, much needed and is happening, which is great, but we're not there yet. We're at the
Yeah.
tail end of the consequences, and the rejuvenation phase of what's coming is not here yet, but we're close. So it's one of those things where I encourage people to start, and we'll talk about this, but to start making decisions and choices in their life now that that they know will serve them. And so connecting to people who are part of the fractured relationship. If you have the opportunity to forgive someone, even not just face to face with them, but lead that way. It's a time, especially for Christians in America, to lead with mercy and grace, and to start to show people
Mm.
this is how you do it. This is how you lead a God centered life, and this is what it looks like. And so let's start. Let's start now.
Whew, that's a good word.
Yeah,
One of the things that I've say, often is, the forgiveness is really for us, for our own mental health and spiritual health. And this is something that the Bible that Jesus talks about in the Bible that, you know, so you can forgive even if the person doesn't receive the forgiveness or accept it.
yeah.
And I think that's a key. And some of you may be asking, like, what does this have to do with my blood pressure or my my blood sugar or, those things
Yeah,
like my diverticulitis, like, it actually has everything to do with it,
yeah,
right? Can you talk a little bit about that, about the connection
yeah.
between our spiritual and emotional health, and our physical outcomes and manifestations? I think that's important for people to understand that.
Yeah, at a base cell level, just stress in particular, if you have any type of stress, our cells literally fold over on themselves, and the receptors that are on the cells actually get blocked. And so when people have stress, what do they crave? Salt and sugar. And during this season, there's an abundance of both. And so when we over consume those things and we're in this stress state, you're not getting sugar into the cell efficiently. And so it creates an inflammatory reaction. We become inflamed. And
Mm,
so there's a definitive reaction inside the body. Our brain and our mind are two different things. The brain just regulates things reflexively, but our mind, our consciousness, our soul, that's a part of who we are and can influence those cells as well. So when you take an approach of forgiveness from a mind soul perspective, when you
mhm,
just plead the blood of Christ and you take it to God, there's
mhm,
actually a mechanism where things start to open up inside your body. And people have expressed this over time. They say, I feel like the weight of the world's been lifted off my shoulders.
mm,
We feel lighter because of something that
yeah,
didn't even happen. It happened up in here, our mind, and it opened up all of our cells. So all of a sudden,
mhm.
the body globally, the muscles become more relaxed and our cells open up, and we perceive
Wow,
that as the
wow.
weight of the world's been lifted off our shoulders.
That's amazing, and so your body has, like, a cellular response and memory, literally,
Oh,
and
yeah.
memory of things. And so let me ask you this, so I've been, um, super busy, as everyone knows, with everything that's been going on with my dad and, having him home from the hospital and doing all of the rehab and having people in the house. It's like a part-time job. managing all of that, and then, of course, doing what I'm doing, in addition to that, which a lot of people have multiple layers of responsibility. I'm not the only one. But one of the things that I've been trying to do is I've been making time in the morning and at midday and in the evening to have a short, like a devotional time.
Uh,
It's not long.
yeah.
I actually use the Book of Common Prayer, because it's all spelled out for you. And you know, there are seasons when I think that having more free form type of focus is important, but, you know, if you have limited time and you are trying to anchor yourself in God's word and in your faith, um, that's working for me. The
Yeah.
other thing that I know that is really good, is playing music. And so I wanted to ask you, like, do you find a difference, um, when you know what people are listening to, what they're consuming, what they're putting their attention to? Does that make a difference in somebody's overall health?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, you've heard the saying, "You are what you eat."
Okay,
The
yes.
the real saying is, "You are what you don't eliminate," and that's not just food.
Okay,
So anything we see, anything we hear has a definitely a physical reaction and stimulus. That's why we know, like, some people will actually have seizures be triggered because of the visual stimulus is too much. So
okay.
that's an extreme example of just a direct thing. But from a spiritual perspective, we also see that what we our eyes see, what our ears hear, there's power to that. So remember, for Christians, we know that the word, which is Jesus, was spoken. God spoke it into existence. So the things that we hear, the sounds, the vibration, there's an energy to that. They impact us greatly. There's research that shows, it's the water research, where they show the crystals of the water.
Mhm.
And when you speak love over the water, it's this beautiful
Amazing.
snowflake type image. When you have anger, it's this gnarled up little thing. That's not any different to our cells. The we are 60% water.
Mhm,
So when we have things that are anger, when we have things that are
mhm.
not love spoken, it does have a physiological impact. We've actually measured it scientifically. We just don't pay attention to it.
That's interesting. You know, it's my sister has been talking about this. She actually, a lot of people don't know this, but she's also an influencer in kind of a different space. But she's a poet and a writer, and she has a newsletter that she puts out. Um, and it's pretty cool. But she's been writing about this, about your thoughts, and about complaining specifically.
Yeah.
And so she's launched on a project of just not complaining, and it's more challenging than you realize,
Yes.
but it's because of what you talked about, that it does change the vibration and the atmosphere, and it's easy, you know, it's just as easy to focus on positive, um, as negative if you make a conscious decision to do that. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, you know, she's taking that track as well, and, you know,
There's
we've
an art
been
to that though. It's not easy. And the thing is, it's not.
yeah.
So I really want to get this point, because a lot of
Okay.
people make a mistake on this one, because what we say is, you're meant to speak life into it, but that doesn't mean you ignore the reality of what's
Right.
happened. So you have to acknowledge and say, okay, this is not good,
Yeah.
but I am speaking life into it. It's very, very different than just positive affirmation or positive thinking. You have to. Otherwise, there's an internal conflict that goes on inside the body,
Okay.
because if you're just lying to yourself, saying that
Everything is fine.
everything is fine,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you basically say, I realize that everything is not the way I want it, Lord, but I thank you for the healing that you
Okay.
have for me. I thank you for the whatever it is that you're looking for, that's coming back in there. It's a different way of speaking
Mhm.
life into it. I know the path will be lit up for me to follow to get
Okay.
out of this. So it's important to recognize where you are,
Mhm.
but also speak life into it. And
Right.
part of that is, like, my wife is brilliant at, um, she's got her devotional time, like you're saying, but when you talk to her and you ask her, how often do you pray? like, and they did studies, and people prayed for like 15 minutes a day, like some pastors, 15 minutes a day. And
Yeah.
that's the devotional time, which is really good. But she doesn't ever stop praying.
Mhm.
And so that's another way to connect daily with God in the moment. And
Right.
we call it the powerful pause, where you just slow down in
Mhm.
life, and you can do this anywhere. If you're on a highway and you pass an accident, and you just basically lift those people up in prayer, that's a way
Mhm.
of connecting to God. And then
Yeah.
just in conversations, being present with people and praying
Mhm.
silent prayers or out loud with God.
Yeah.
It that constant communication. You'll be shocked at how rewarding that is for your body, but also for the people around you. And there's power in the prayer.
That's good, yeah. Thank you for bringing that point in, and I
Yeah,
think that that is part of what I think she was addressing as well, that it's not that you're just ignoring and putting your head in the sand, but it's how you're
yeah.
approaching situations and then what you choose to focus on minute by minute, especially in your conversation, right?
Yep.
And so, I find that it's especially in the space that I'm in with politics and following all of the stories that we follow all the time, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah.
And so, it's like it's very easy to be one of those people where, somebody says, "Hey, listen, please try not to talk about like X, at this party or in a gathering." And I'm like, I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, I I'm like, "Okay," and then next thing you know, "Did you hear about the drones?"
Yeah, that's right.
It's just so because it's just, I spend so much time immersed in that, and
Yeah.
it is a challenge to get my head out of that space and into, "Hey, this is a really beautiful song. This is a really beautiful verse." Look at the even the weather, like, winter is a good thing because it gives the earth a chance to rest
Yeah.
and things like that. So, like, instead of focusing on the negative or just the things that are coming at you all the time, that powerful pause is a chance where you can see beyond, the surface and just kind of ask God, "What is it that is what is it that's important right now?" And then long term, what's important long term? And I think this is where I wanna get back to health because
Yeah.
this is important because, everybody listening has a destiny on their life. And one of the things that we're learning is that our food system, our medical system, everything that all of the systems and entities that we have been taught to trust, especially at our age for
Yeah.
decades, we are seeing the house of cards come tumbling down around us. And so there's this cognitive dissonance where it used to be that you could turn on the TV and go, okay, there's our anchor man. And the news is
Yeah.
something that we're tuning into for a few minutes so that we can keep abreast of what's happening. Okay, here's my doctor with the white coat and the stethoscope. And dang it, turns out
Yeah.
they're being heavily influenced by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, and they don't actually have my best interest at heart, and even if they did, they don't have time to think about it.
Yeah.
And so all of these institutions, military, right? Right now they're telling us, we have no idea what the drones are doing, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah.
And you're just going, "Uh, I I no
Really?
longer believe you." And
Yeah.
so how can we navigate this? Because I want people to be healthy. I want
Yeah.
people to live their best life, to do the things that God has for them to do. So what do you think? What are like give us like 3 things that people could focus on going forward and how you and your team can help them?
So, what
3 or
you're
4, whatever, I don't wanna limit you.
yeah, so basically what you're asking for is exactly what we just talked about, and that it's discernment. And so definitely you want to acknowledge, first of all, that something's not right. Exactly what we just spoke about. So something's not right. They no longer have my trust because of what we've seen. And a lot of people who have influence, doctors and other people in the past, those people are targets for people who and power corporations, whatever they are, to actually start to influence. We see lobbyists, we see in our government system, we see
Mhm.
basically the just the strive for power and control starts to come in there and influence very slowly, just inch by inch, year by year, and they influence these influencers to the point where they've now bought into a system that's no
Yeah.
longer the trustworthy system.
Right.
It's compromised. So when I 6 years ago, I met with my leadership team and I said we have to become a trusted resource for people because there's going to be a collapse of the systems. We were in
Mm.
functional medicine. I've been outside the system for so long now that I saw it starting to go down years ago, and we put together some um, just I wasn't even doing interviews, I wasn't doing podcasts,
Mhm.
anything like that. So I said, I've got to start doing things like that to at least be talking about what's happening. I had no idea about COVID that was coming or anything like that. That just sped things up quite a bit. And so it's important for people to learn to be good at discerning,
Mhm.
and so part of that is recognizing that there's a problem and then knowing what truth looks like. And so it's very important because then with more certainty and what we talked about before, the powerful pause. So you look at something and you put it through the filter of, does this line up with truth? Now I use things like uh, uh, the Bible and Scripture. So spiritually, that's my framework for truth. It's got
Mhm.
to go through that filter. Does this line up with God's word? Then I look at, for healthcare, I look at this: is this how we know how we're designed by God? Meaning, it's not like scientific studies that tell you if
Mhm.
something is good. They're flawed. How we do research is flawed. How the body is designed to work basically is what we need to be able to look at. So, for
Mhm.
example,
Okay.
I saw early on one of the questions was, I know we'll get to questions later, but I'm going to use this as an example. The one of the questions was, my husband gets up 4 times a night to go to the bathroom. What can he do? Well, we know that that's not a normal response, right? We
Right.
should be able to sleep through the night uninterrupted. So there's
Right.
many things that can cause that. So acknowledging that that's not a normal thing, when
Mhm.
some people in the medical field will say, "Oh, that's normal, that's common because so many
Right.
people have it." No, it's
Right.
not. Here's a medication that'll help you not have to go to the bathroom as much. And they try and cover it with a band-aid, when really the reality is, they're basically, you have to look at prostate health. You have to look if the body's too acidic. When someone is inflamed and stressed out on a cellular level, their cells fold up, like we said, and their minerals don't go into the cells. So the number one cause that have men have to get up in the middle of the night is because you're not getting minerals into the cell because they're stuck in fight or flight. A sleep disorder can cause that. Sleep apnea, one called the upper airway resistance syndrome, where you're not getting enough oxygen to the brain. Anyway, something's causing the fight or flight response. Minerals don't go into the cell. The water that you're consuming doesn't follow the minerals into the cell. So you end up peeing it out. So we see this with infections as well. So you have to find out what's
Mhm.
causing the inflammation. Is it diet? Is it a sleep disorder? Is it coming from a low grade infection in the gut, which is the most common cause? Fungus in the gut causes acids that are
Mhm.
irritants to the bladder and the
Mhm.
prostate, and that's what causes a lot of the nighttime scenarios. So knowing how the body is supposed to work is one of the key foundations physiologically. And there's a mental, chemical, and physical component to how we operate in the flesh, and we've known it. There's been so much that we've learned over the last couple hundred years, and even before that, of how we're wired and how we're made. And doctors, in particular, have lost the ability to assess that and look at that. They sometimes you go to a doctor and they don't even put their hands on you and to assess you, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw that a lot in the hospital, that, there was no skin-to-skin contact, and when the doctors were in the room, they always had gloves on.
Yeah.
And it was so it's like, okay, yeah, it was weird, it was all about hand sanitizer and gloves. We never saw anybody actually wash their hands, like in the old days, the doctor would actually do the exam, then
Yeah.
they would wash their hands,
Yeah.
right? And then leave the room. And so, this is somebody said, we can't trust these systems. But what you're saying is use your discernment. If something is wrong, understand like, okay, this is not normal in
Yep.
spite of the fact that the system is saying that it is. However, what we've seen now is that the trust um, level in the medical system is at an all-time low. And what we're hearing is that people who actually have legitimate medical needs are avoiding and
Yeah.
putting off going to the doctor. Now we know traditionally that men kind of trend this way anyhow,
Yep.
and then the women in their lives sort of push them, to see a doctor. However, I think that now that the women are awake and they're realizing we can't trust the system, um, what are people to do? Now, I recommend they call you. Um, but, like, how would that look? So let's say that Maureen, does call you and set up a consultation for her husband. I'm presuming they're not in Minnesota, in the Minneapolis area. So what would that look like if they, reach out to Synapse, to start the ball rolling on getting to the bottom of his issues?
Well, so we have an onboarding process. So we do what we call a discovery call. There's no charge for it, but it's to collect some information to see if it's a fit for things that we actually do here. And then there's the next step of showing people what it is that we do as far as programs. And then we roll out the process. We're going to make recommendations that help people. We identify mentally, chemically, and physically what's not communicating properly. Because the premise is this: if there's a breakdown in communication that leads to dysfunction, dysfunction leads to symptoms and eventually disease. So if you can identify where that breakdown is early on, you can actually prevent symptoms and disease. It sounds pretty basic, and it should be our way our healthcare system operates, but it's not. And I'm going to say this too, because this is actually this will be the first time I'm making this announcement publicly. I wasn't going to do it until next year, early next year, but I'll do it on your show here first. We're being asked to teach our model across the country. And so, because of our success and because of what we're doing, and because of what's about to come with the Trump administration and the collapse of the old guard and the old healthcare system, there's going to be a good new system. But we're being asked to teach it to a lot of smaller clinics. So I'm going to ask that anyone, if you want to see a change in the healthcare system and you want someone locally, reach out to us. Go to our website, and you can either do a discovery call or just send an email to info@officialsynapse.com.
Good.
If you have someone locally who is a functional medicine practitioner or someone who wants to do it, we're going to start working with clinics in every state, because we do have people that fly in from all 50 states and from 12 countries, and we've been doing this for 27 years. But the reality is we need to start teaching doctors in your local community, and we're going to teach them not just how to do it from a healthcare model, but a kingdom business model mindset where they actually pour back into
Mhm.
their community. They tithe into their community. And just like Trump is setting up sustainable farming in the communities again with his Secretary of Agriculture hires and things like that, we're going to be doing the same thing from a healthcare model. There's a lot of medical doctors who are good people who are stuck in a bad system. There's a lot of nurses who are good
Mm,
people stuck in a bad system.
yeah,
So if they want to create that, we're going to show them exactly how to do it from a functional medicine model, and we're going to give them all of the tools they need to take care of their community. So if you want this type of healthcare in your community, reach out to us. You're about to see the beginning of a
yeah,
revolution in the healthcare system, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of it. I'm very thankful that for President Trump, General Flynn, Clay Clark, all these people that were fighting for our freedoms.
yeah.
I mean, there's thousands. I can
Yes,
name them all. The
yes.
Dr. Means and what she's coming out with right now, all of them. It's just
It
amazing.
yeah, it is amazing. What's that email again? Info at official
Info
synapse.
at officialsynapse.com. And what we're looking for, if there's someone you know who is a functional medicine practitioner, doesn't matter if they're a chiropractor, a medical doctor, a DO, a nurse
Mhm.
practitioner, if they want that but don't know how to do that, that's a good fit.
Okay.
So we're just looking for someone, and we'll vet them, and there'll be certain people that won't quite have enough in their
Mhm.
clinical
Sure.
experience, but we're looking for the right people. We're looking for about 2 clinics per state right now. We are going to open up
Okay. Wow.
and teach 100 different clinics in 2025.
That's amazing. That's incredible, and so this is wonderful that we're announcing this here on the show,
Yeah,
and so think about this, I think a lot of you have that favorite, provider that you work with, maybe it's a team, but you know that they could expand to serve more, or maybe that's you. Maybe you're in that position, or you're thinking about doing that and leaving the traditional system. I don't even wanna know if I wanna call it system, but the broken system. And so I think this is important, and one of the things too, I think is so important to going forward is that, the insurance model is something that we all know needs deep reform. But it's also a mindset reform that I
yeah,
think needs to take place because people have gotten in the mindset that the insurance should cover everything, right? Right? The preventive care, all of that. And in my mind, that's like expecting your car insurance to cover your tire changes and your oil changes, but
yeah.
nobody expects that.
No,
Um, but because of that, because we have been trained to think that way, the insurance companies have been given an inordinate amount of power over
yeah,
your healthcare decisions. And that is something that it's a different you have a different model.
yes,
And so for those of you who are listening, you're not watching, I do have the QR code up on the screen, but I want to tell people also how to get in touch with them. It's official Synapse. It's official synapse.com. And you can also call them. It's 651-209-9906. 651-209-9906. And make sure you tell them that Mary Grace sent you. Now, we're going to take a quick break. Dr. Troy, one of the things that's unique about our program is that we have partners like Dr. Troy who work with us on a commission basis. And when you purchase from them, when you buy a package or you buy something from one of our partners, the Mary Grace Show benefits financially, and that's a what we call a I don't even know what the word is, the something economy. It's like an alternative economy. So we're not depending on these corporate-owned
yeah,
businesses to keep us afloat, and that gives us autonomy over the content that we give you here. And so you can go to marygracemedia.com, you can click on the shopping link, and today we're gonna feature 3 of our favorite partners. One is our friends at griddownchowdown.com. They have the freeze-dried beef that so many of you are raving about. This is a pound of beef right here, and you can put it in your suitcase, you can put it in your purse, that is before you rehydrate it. When you rehydrate it, it looks just like the ground beef that you would buy from the store or from your local farmer, because this is from a local farmer. This is from a rancher in Oklahoma, and so when you buy it, you're actually helping save American farmland as well. We also have our friends at My Pillow. They have some Christmas specials going on right now, and so you're going to want to go to mypillow.com and use promo code Mary Grace, and then of course our friends over at Synapse. So stick around for just a minute. We're going to let you hear from all of them, and then we'll be right back with Dr. Troy, and then we'll take some questions because we are here to ask the doctor, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Leave the volume up, even if you need to refresh your morning coffee. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jordan, and this is my brother. And I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown. And this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with. Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's
We've
awesome.
been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised, just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal,
Right.
what it's been fed. And so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code. Americans spend more now than ever on healthcare, and we're sicker than almost anybody in the world. We've put our trust in a system that's completely let us down. Dr. Troy Spurrill and the team at Synapse Center for Health and Healing have changed all that. They are a functional medicine clinic, and they get to the root cause of what's made you sick in the first place. Once they do that, they give you solutions to help you get out of that. This is the way that medicine was meant to be practiced, and this is what they're doing. They're changing the entire system from the inside out, one person at a time, and you could be one of those people. And so when you're working with the team at Synapse, they're giving you solutions and not just prescriptions. That's a game changer for me. When you set up a free discovery call with Synapse, you're starting on a journey of healing. You're starting on a journey of getting answers. And that's why I've partnered with them, because I want you to be healthy. I want your family to be healthy. I want you to have all of the resources that you need to steward the body and the health that God's given you. Go to officialsynapse.com and tell them Mary Grace sent you. That's Official Synapse, SYNAPSE.com.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of My Pillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all My Pillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely.
I'll tell you, Mike Lindell is looking great, isn't he?
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually.
Takes some really good nutraceuticals. So listen, imagine if we could bottle up the energy of Mike Lindell and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so what are they doing? What is it that you think? I mean, Trump says, good genes, but I also think Melania has some influence on his diet and, some of what
Uh,
he's doing. I don't
I
know.
don't know. For me, I have to go to there's a supernatural component. I do believe Trump has good genes for sure, but I also know that he is constantly getting critiqued by Melania and his doctor about how about some of his food choices that he does make, and so
Yeah.
he's not the one we should be listening to as far as food. However, the only way I can explain his endurance, his energy, his stamina,
Yeah.
and who he is, he's got the hand of God on him, and that just speaks
Yeah.
volumes into the how the spiritual realm can actually influence our physical makeup here, because there are reasons that he's able to do what he does, and the number one reason is God. And so I've everything that we teach as doctors comes with a caveat, and it's this, because we just had this conversation with my staff. I've been working 30 years now, and I put my hands on people, assessing them,
Yeah.
physically checking them. I've not missed a day of work from illness in 30 years. And I went
Wow.
through active COVID, no mask, treating people. If they had COVID through day 1 through 5, I said, "Come see me. I will treat you.
Mhm.
I'll help get you through it." And I've
Wow.
still, to this day, never had a sickness or illness. And so part of it is, I believe, getting my hands on people, being exposed to many things, and the grace of God at the
Mhm.
same time.
Mhm.
So that Trump, I'm not going to say he can be our leader of the free world and be leader of our nation, but do not follow his guidance for diet and nutrition.
Well, one thing I will say is I think that his obviously his decision to make somebody who is in a picture of health
Yeah,
the head of this effort to restore health to America,
yeah,
that is a great decision. And one thing I will point out about RFK is he openly acknowledges that this has been his prayer for many, many
yes,
years. And I love that, right? He's
yeah,
giving God the glory for answering a prayer that he prayed consistently and without fail, which is to restore and renew health in America, especially to our children.
yeah,
And I mean, he's in great shape, and he does an amazing job, with his nutrition and things like that. Now, one thing I will say about Trump is that if anybody can get McDonald's to return to cleaner ingredients, it's going to be Donald Trump.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
So I think, let's hear it for fries cooked in tallow. I mean,
Yeah,
I
right.
don't think it's a mistake that I don't think it's like coincidence that he was working the fry station
No,
on his little stint at McDonald's
no,
because he wants to reform them, I
yeah,
think. So at least if he has his McDonald's once a week or so, it can be less toxic. That's
yeah,
what I think. I think he has an ulterior motive.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so he can justify it. Okay, if it's okay, let's jump to a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Looks like, Lisa is one of our longtime listeners over on Facebook. She has a question. I'll read it. This is for her husband. See, I said it's the women who get the husbands to the
Yeah,
doctor, right?
yep,
So he has terrible kidney stones, and they said they're protein derived. He has um, lithotripsy multiple times. Last time was stented, and it was done internally. He has one stone too large to burst because the damage it would do to the kidney. He has the urinary frequency and is upset about it. No meds the doctor has prescribed has helped. Any natural or conscious changes he should wise up to.
yeah, absolutely. So 75% of the kidney stones are oxalate, and so a lot of times they'll say it's from protein excess, and it's really not the protein excess. And so, first of all, if it's an oxalate based kidney stone, again, you have to make sure that the gut is doing okay. The majority of our oxalates come from fungus, and so the consumption of sugar. It's when you have the protein with the sugars that it becomes a problem. So if you're doing carnivore or something like that, you can actually help clean up that system. Also, they tell you to avoid calcium, but calcium's not the problem. So there's a couple things that you tend to be deficient in when you're converting those um, oxalates, and so you need to bind the oxalates in the gut. You need calcium apatite or calcium citrate to bind it in the gut. You need B6, which means proper bacterial balance, but B6 is one of the main things in the GI tract. A lot of times it comes from a barrier issue in the digestive system again. So it is correcting the digestive system. If uric acid is high, then there are some things that you can do. There's some uric acid protocols that help also with the kidney stone scenarios. Dehydration is one of the main causes of the kidney stones too. So you have to make sure that is working. And I've harped on this a lot, but sleep disorders create a low stomach acid scenario, which creates a high body acid scenario. When your body is too acidic, then it can pull the calcium and create the kidney stones. So again, if you can mitigate and manage the acidity in the body, then you don't end up getting the kidney stones. So there's a conversion that needs to occur. But if you're doing a high protein diet with a bunch of sugar, that could be problematic. And you think you're doing okay because that's one of the scenarios where you're eating, you're like, it's just a little bit extra here. But if there's any type of fungal component there, B6 is okay, she says, so that's good if it's being measured properly. And then making sure that there isn't the sleep disorder. So getting any type of um, uh, levels of, as far as is there a REM sleep disorder? Is there sleep apnea? Is there snoring? If you have, like, I like Aura rings and different wearables that can actually measure the amount of deep sleep, and that can help as well. When it comes to the kidney stones, if it's not an oxalate problem, then you have to improve the kidney's ability to actually get the exchange of these minerals in the kidney. Now, kidneys are like cardiovascular. So if there is a cardiovascular family history scenario, then we're dealing with a completely different scenario. You have to improve the blood vessels. And so that could be a vitamin E scenario where you have to have the good vitamin E. That could be a endothelial lining. So if there's family history of heart disease, if there's family history of cardiovascular, then you have to take a cardiovascular approach to actually reducing the kidney stones. You still want the leaky gut assessed and addressed. If there's no, because we have this thing called an MT barrier system in the gut. So you have to make sure that the gut is good and there isn't a sleep disorder, and it doesn't look like he's doing sugar or carbs or anything like that. So that's great. So if there's snoring, oh, she just said snoring horrible. So boy, Lisa, you are on it. She's like giving me the information on the fly here.
She's a nurse practitioner.
Oh, that's why she knows.
Yeah.
Okay, so sleep disorder has to be addressed, and then if there's a cardiovascular component, that's the go-to. Now that is the minority. 75%, like I said, are oxalates. And so really you have to look at, is there upper GI problems with stomach, H. pylori, gallbladder, bile duct, or pancreas type things. So getting the rest of the blood assessed, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease in the family history, I would then look at the um, really look at the cardiovascular scenarios. Now, if you're doing high protein, no carbs, like carnivore, things like your cholesterol and stuff like that will spike initially and then go back down. So you have to work through that when it comes to the kidney stone part of this. And they do tell you still to, if it's coming from your gut, you still have to bind it in the gut with calcium citrate, 2 with each meal. And so it has to be with the meals to bind that. It will not increase the stones, but you have to reduce the acid burden in the body. And so fixing the cardiovascular sleep scenario is where I would focus on that one.
Interesting, yeah, because she said he really has bad snoring. So,
Yeah.
one thing I will mention, Lisa, I know that you're not in the Minnesota area, but I think that, for your husband, for the, you know, severity of his condition, it might be worth like a trip up to Minnesota to see Doctor Troy, hands-on, especially with the breathing problems, because I had a chance to see him and, he does some amazing adjustments physically, that you're not gonna get from any other doctor until he trains up these other doctors in these other clinics, but that's gonna take a while, so that's something to think about, and I know that you have a call into them, Lisa, so, maybe kinda put that on your radar, just, grab the camper and you and your husband head up to Minnesota when the weather breaks. Um,
That is what I'm going to be teaching, is that how to correct that sleep disorder, because the other comment she said was belly fat, and that's a cortisol scenario. And
okay,
cortisol is a fight or flight stress hormone that's chronic. And so sleep disorders are the number one thing that cause that.
and that's what I've been dealing with, some
That's
of
what a
that.
lot of people deal with. That's why we're
Yeah,
going to be teaching it, because
yeah.
they don't necessarily know how to recognize it. And most people don't tolerate CPAPs or anything like that. So you have to fix it without that stuff. And that's what I'm going to be teaching a lot of docs and
Yeah,
chiropractors.
and this is where the real genius comes in of what Doctor Troy is doing, that it's what we would think would be an unconventional approach, but in the next several years, the hope is to make this the norm,
It will be. It's
so
so
that
logical. When people
right?
see it, when I show this to doctors,
Yeah.
they're like, "How did I not know this or see this?"
Mhm, so that it becomes, right now, people think of what he does as kind of different or weird. What we want is for the people who don't do this to be thought of as, "That's weird. What do you mean you don't do that?"
Yeah.
Um, right? So, here's a question from Ann Carter Thomas on Facebook. Okay, childhood lifetime eczema exacerbated while living in Virginia because of the high humidity and hot temperatures causing itching. Should I move back out west into a drier climate? I refuse to take any more prednisone. Now, I have a solution to this that helped me, but I'm going to let Dr. Troy weigh in on this.
Well, let's hear yours first, Dr. Grace. You go ahead, and then I'll
Okay.
chime in.
Now, I just wanna give our disclaimer, and that is that this is this show is for informational and educational purposes. Dr. Troy is a doctor, but he's not your doctor. And even if he is not diagnosing or treating you on this show. This is for information and education. So, my solution was, that I went full carnivore, and I cut out, all grains, anything but meats and animal fats and eggs. Now, I do know at one time I had problems with egg whites, and I think that somebody can still have issues with that um, for some reason, especially when it comes to these the itching and the systemic inflammation. But for me, going that direction helped tremendously. And I know because I have recently reintroduced some grains over the holidays that I almost immediately get flare ups in the itching, and it's like a systemic itching and eczema. I mean, my skin gets raw, it breaks, gets very dry. But when I resume the high fat carnivore, all of that disappears. Can you explain why?
Yeah, so I'm gonna again go back to physiology of how the body actually works. So in the environment that you're in, and if there's more moisture, what does moisture do? Moisture basically helps your immune system be able to swim to get to where it needs to go. Now, the immune system fights infection, manages inflammation. So when you have itching and you have like even a histamine hive reaction, that's your immune system. It's reacting or overreacting or reacting inappropriately, we think. And so you can move to a different part of the country. But the reality is, there are things that are setting off an immune system reaction. And so what you went through there is how to reduce inflammation. And so when you switched up your diet, you reduced inflammation. And one of the things that helps manage inflammation is fats, omega-3 fatty acids, or different fats in our body. So that's number one. That's the second most important. Number one is vitamin D. So making sure vitamin D is good, making sure your fats are good is a big part of it. When we get inflamed, we actually get reduction in those levels internally because they get burned up and used up. So the other side of that is it's very important to know that when you are in a state of fight or flight, adrenaline will actually go by, just swim by, goes right by your white blood cells and macrophages in our peripheral tissue. It's your immune system. When adrenaline, that stress hormone, goes by it, it triggers a release of those immune cells to release what's called histamine. Histamine is what causes the itching. Histamine is what causes rashes. Histamine is what causes a lot of the hives that we see. Sometimes it makes it to the surface of the skin, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a deep itch you can't quite get to. It can really, really affect people negatively. So that
Yeah.
is a scenario where the adrenaline, the stress hormone, is triggering the immune system response. The answer is the same. It's important to minimize your inflammation. You can do it through diet. You can do it by fixing the sleep disorder, whatever it is, reducing the fight or flight stress response. And that's going to help quite a bit with the reduction of the itching and the histamine. So we would look at stuff like, is there something in the environment, an allergy to the trees, to the actual what's taking place in Virginia? Is it the humidity itself is just going to tell us that there's already an underlying problem? If you move out west or Midwest, that problem is still there. It's just not being as recognized. So my 2 cents is to dig into and answer the question is, what's the root cause? What set this up? And when you do that, you can live anywhere in the United States. So is it an external environmental thing? Is it a diet thing? Is there a stress component that's releasing adrenaline or cortisol?
Mm,
Or is there a hidden underlying infection that's going on? When you find out what's triggering the inflammation or the immune system challenge, that's when you can actually learn how to tweak your diet or to
mhm.
correct an underlying infection and move forward and live wherever you want within the United States.
And so when you talk about these skin conditions, you know, in the system, the medical system, the medical industrial complex, the first rule of, thumb is that people go to the dermatologist.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that that would actually they're not getting to the root cause.
No.
They're treating the symptoms, and so you could have a lifetime of going to the dermatologist until you get to the root cause, which is what you do. You
Yeah.
get to the root cause. And that's really the beauty of what you're doing and what you're training other people to do so that, like you said, you can live anywhere
Yeah.
once you identify the root cause. And I want to go back to something that you said in the beginning because I don't think Anne was here for this. Is you were talking about the overall systemic stressors that people have experienced over the past like 4 to 8 years, and I don't think those can be discounted. And
No.
that's where our prayer and reflection comes in because I think most of us have been running at a very high level of stress, even if it's sort of pushed down under the surface, it's humming there, and it's like a current under the water that people have just sort of learned to live with. And one thing I realized when I went carnivore is that I didn't even know how much anxiety I had until I didn't.
Yeah. Right.
Right? I was
It's
like,
so true.
"Wait a minute, something's missing," you
Yeah.
know? And I wouldn't have known. If you had asked me, "Do you feel anxious?" I would have said, "No, I'm pretty cool. I'm cool as a cucumber," you know? But then it was, it was in a driving situation where I normally would have had a little bit of road rage, and I didn't. I was like, whatever, no biggie." And it was because then I realized, "Wait a minute, I've had a lot of anxiety." So it's something that's something to think about as well. Let's see if we have any
Absolutely.
more
And I
questions.
wanna yeah, I wanna build on that because you said like the dermatologist. I'm gonna give an analogy that I teach my patients. A dermatologist will give you a cream or something to help the skin. That's like a firefighter going and putting out a fire. So you can keep going back and having the firefighters put out the fire, put out the fire, put out the fire. But if there is an arsonist in town lighting all these fires, the real solution is to figure out
Mm,
who's the arsonist and take care of it. So you have less fires to put out. And I saw a comment on the thread there. It said, "Interesting. I went vegan and my skin condition cleared up." And so that is a good point. You have to know your body. You have to look at what works for you.
mhm,
The bottom line is when you clean up your diet, and I'll say this, my healthiest patients are vegans and my most unhealthy patients are vegans. And so, and same
interesting.
thing for carnivore. I've seen so many good changes with autoimmune, and we now know why. Because carnivore is an oxidative stress high diet. It causes oxidative stress. It
Interesting,
then causes your body to rebound and put the fire out, and so it's strengthening a different part of your system. The vegan diet is an
interesting.
antioxidant uh, big component uh, diet type of thing. So it's helping with the antioxidants. The problem is across the board, and this is what RFK is fixing, is the quality of those foods have started to become less and less and less. So
Mhm,
in the 80s and 90s, we saw people switching to vegan diets actually do better. Then in the early 2000s and beyond, people switching to vegan diets started doing worse unless it was organic because glyphosates and other things were building up in those foods. And now we're seeing a complete shift. Basically, we're seeing carnivore take off because people are needing to manage that, they're training their system to manage that inflammatory part of it. The bottom line is be very, very aware of what your body responds to and what it doesn't. Don't make quick snap decisions. Let it play out, but monitor it and don't fight to be right. If you're 3, 6 months into something and it's not working, then you know there's something else going on there. Keep looking and keep digging.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I think the emphasis here is, like, clean food.
Clean
Because
food.
there is like, in the keto world, there's what they call dirty keto, and
Yes.
that's all the substitutions that people get. Like, they don't wanna give up their cookies, so they end up buying, like, all the keto cookies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's actually not that's, like,
No.
suboptimal,
Yeah.
and so, when you talk about going carnivore or keto or something like that, or vegan, there's still the emphasis should be on eliminating ultra processed foods and eating foods in their purest form. And so that's really a key. And I'm actually responding to Kat here, because one of the things I don't talk about as much anymore is that we do have a really good superfoods line that supports a plant-based diet. And you can find that on my website. If you're looking for a very clean, uh, organic, toxin-free alternative for a plant-based diet, please go to my website and go on the shopping tab and click on the superfoods. You can't find anything better. Everything is tested for heavy metals. The foods are quarantined. The source of every single ingredient is known and tested rigorously by the company. And, so if you're gonna go that route, or if you just want a really good source of greens and vegetables and sprouted foods and things like that, it is processed, but it's live dehydrated, so it's not an ultra processed food. So just, and that preserves the nutrient content. We've been actually using some of that with my dad to keep his protein levels up. He likes the chocolate. Um, and so, we do that and we add, collagen peptides, and he does get a little scoop of chocolate ice cream in his just because, we don't want him to lose any more weight. So, but that's a good source. So go to my website, marygracemedia.com, click on shopping and go to the superfoods. There is a coupon, and if you have any questions about it, just email me, info@marygracemedia.com, but definitely check that out. So we do have, I think, one more question. Our Rumble chat is super quiet today, but we do have one question. Somebody says, what causes sodium intolerance slash reaction? I don't know if we have enough information in that question, but
No, no, sodium intolerance. So, my original thought would be what I was talking about before. We have what's called sodium potassium pumps on the outside of the cells. So if someone is consuming sodium, which is usually in the form of sodium chloride or salt, but if you're taking just sodium straight up in an electrolyte drink or something like that, and you don't do well with it, and it's just sodium, that's pretty rare. So intolerance is a little bit of an unusual. We'd have to see what that means. Does that mean that there's swellings? Does that mean that they have neurologic issues? But if you're consuming sodium and it doesn't get into the cell, it's what I was talking about before. That's a fight or flight response where the minerals aren't able to actually bind, get in to the cells, and the water doesn't follow. So if there's basically a great line. It says the solution to pollution is dilution. So if you're polluted with toxins or you're stressed out, your water will stay outside the cells and you'll feel bloated and retain the water. And so if your blood pressure goes up from sodium, that's a sign of either pollution from a stress state or from a dietary state. So without any other specifics, that's kind of where my brain lands on that one.
okay, and that was actually Lisa Gray. Okay, so we have a unique question.
Yeah.
I've never heard this one. So Jennifer on Facebook, desperately seeking info regarding cracks in the tongue. No one can help. For decades, I was told it's normal, but never met another person with this problem. That's your sign. That's
Yeah.
not normal.
No.
I'm 49, no meds, no other health issues except varicose veins after pregnancies.
Okay.
Normal.
Yeah, no, so the way we say it is the body always gives you clues. So that is a potential clue. There's a lot of different things that could be. The first thing we always look at with cracks in the tongue, that yes, if it runs in the family, there can be an anatomical scenario. There are a few genetic causes for that, but that still doesn't mean it's normal. It means that there's just in the formation of the tongue. So if you've had it since birth, that there's a genetic component still means there's stuff that you can do to offset that. It is definitely not normal. It can heal. The number one cause is actually B12 deficiency. And so getting your B12 assessed, and it's not a B12 lab. So your B12 can be like 600, which is low, right in the middle, and that's considered normal. But if you have to get what's called a methylmalonic acid test, and so a urine test. And so when you get the methylmalonic acid with the B12, that'll tell you how much of the B12 are you using. Because some people have a genetic issue where they can't methylate properly. It's called MTHFR, and so you can't actually use the B12 as efficiently. Yeah, you've got that one. And so it's very important to know that that might be number one. Number two, we also see this with people who have other type of upper GI problems, where there's dehydration in the upper GI tract from low grade infections. One of the craziest ones. I've only seen this once in 27 years, but I'm also a functional neurologist as far as trained, and so we found a movement disorder. It was a sleep disorder. People who grind their teeth at nighttime actually have a movement disorder where you're actually pushing the tongue on the roof of the mouth. You'll look at things called it's called bruxism as far as the grinding the teeth at
Mhm.
night. But some people will also have what's called dystonia. It's a form of muscle movement, and a lot of times that actually came from trauma. Learned this years ago. It's
Interesting.
called the DYT1 gene on the ninth chromosome that gets activated when you get into a physical accident. So it could have
Yeah.
been a car accident that triggered this response, and it's a muscle movement disorder that activates when you're sleeping. So those people, we actually have to do a little bit of retraining of the brain, or put like a mouth guard in there to actually help with it. So the bottom line is it's not normal, it's not common, and so some investigation needs to occur if there's no other health symptoms. So usually when I hear stuff like this, like when we onboard people, we have like the free discovery call we talked about. But if someone chooses to work with us, we actually send them a questionnaire that takes about 45 minutes to an hour long to
Yeah.
fill out. And that always leads to us finding something they didn't know was there. And so people will say, yeah, I'm healthy, but then we're looking for a breakdown in communication, or some level of nutrient
Mhm.
that's not right. And in Chinese medicine, they'll look at the tongue and say, "Oh, that's spleen. That's something along
Mhm.
those areas." Well, spleen is where our cells go and get kind of broken down again. So when I see tongue stuff like that, I'm always thinking upper GI. I'm looking at things like anemia or other types of
Yeah.
breaking down of the red blood cells early, which happens with Lyme, co-infections of Lyme, like Bartonella, Babesia. So our questionnaire will zero in, and we'll know what body organ system is not 100% optimal. She feels good, so it means it's not disease or anything like that,
Mhm.
but there'll be some level of things not working. And the crack in the tongue is, unless she's had it since birth, is a representation of some level of a
Yeah.
breakdown. It's an
Yeah.
early sign of dysfunction before there's a disease. Those are the things we look for. Those are
Yeah.
the gems that God gives us to tell us something's not quite right.
It's so interesting, and, the questionnaire is it's I went through the questionnaire, and it's so funny because I totally forgot to put that I had had a really bad case of COVID, like,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you this because if you decide if you wanna pursue working with Dr. Troy, one of the things I would recommend is, set up the discovery call, and then what I would do is kind of go through, and ask God to help you remember this, but go through your history. If you have
Mhm.
labs, pull those up from the past, but also, if you kept a journal, things like that, and think about things that happened to you that you wouldn't normally tell a doctor. So, for example, like, when I was 12, I fell out of a tree and landed on my back. True story. I was a little younger, and all my I was the youngest in all the cousin group, and so everybody had left to run home and go to lunch, and I was, like, by myself. I thought I was dead, but I wasn't. I was just kind of blacked out, and then I recovered and got up. But that's the kind of thing, like, you don't actually talk about, right? But those things can actually have an impact. Or, like, if you fall off of a horse because the horse missed the jump and you kept going. Again, that happened to me. So, things like that, that you might not think have an impact on your future as an adult, start thinking about those things. Not that you wanna relive and go through, like, all of your life's
No.
trauma, but these are the keys that Dr. Troy, God has given him a gift to be able to look at these things and have keys to unlock what's going on in your body. Because God knows you, he formed your inmost parts, and he uses people like Dr. Troy and his team and gives them the wisdom to be able to make those connections. And so I do want to advise that anybody who's going to think about working with him, to get the most out of it, start thinking about your history in a way that you wouldn't bring into a more industrialized medical practice. Because, like, if you tell, a medical doctor at so and so clinic that's owned by BlackRock that you fell off your horse when you were 14, they're going to be like, so. Um, they're gonna be like, "Why are you telling me this?" But these are the things that Dr. Troy actually wants to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Everyone's a
So
10,000-piece puzzle. We gotta put the outside frame up, figure out how things are communicating.
yeah, and Melanie is a case in point here, I think, okay? Um, Lisa has to go. Thank you for being here, Lisa. It's awesome. So listen, she says, "I grind my teeth at night and wear a mouth guard. Not sure if it's from having my jaw fractured in 1997 or a car crash in 2003 and suffered a concussion."
Yeah. So, perfect
Puzzle
example.
pieces.
Yeah, puzzle pieces, and, even let's just say the car crash, had that nerve kinda, that part of the brain kinda ramp up. It makes you a little bit more, prone to, swings as far as that area of the brain, how it regulates, muscle tone and emotion, so you can sometimes slip into depression or sometimes slip into mild anxiety, and certain things will trigger that, like upper digestive system inflammation will then trigger the actual reaction. It's kind of like when people say, "I have horrible nightmares if I eat ice cream before going to bed. If I
Mm,
don't eat the ice cream, then I'm okay." And so it's the same type of thing. Inflammation in the upper GI tract will cause a reaction with our head, neck, and jaw. And because the muscles and nerves are so close to threshold because of the past trauma, it
mhm,
takes very little stimulus in a negative way to have that grinding and the jaw stuff go on. So we can use the mouth guard to protect our teeth, but the reality is, let's see if we can do something to improve
mhm.
the mechanism that's causing the nerves to contract the jaw. And a lot of times there's a
Yeah,
sleep disorder attached to that. So it's really about diving into identifying the
right.
root cause.
Again, yeah,
Yeah.
root
It's
cause.
sleuthing. It really is sleuthing. The whole
Yeah,
point.
root cause. So it's amazing, and I'm so looking forward to this. And so again, in case you missed this, one of the things that Dr. Troy is going to be doing in 2025 is identifying and working with functional medicine practitioners around the country, to train them up and to help them get established in these types of modalities that he's talking about, so that you can have this available to you in your state, if not in your community
Yeah.
directly. So please, think about that. If there is somebody that that you think would be a good candidate for this, not everybody's listening to this show, but reach out to them and have them contact Dr. Troy directly, info at officialsynapse.com, and reach out to him. And then his team will do the vetting and help figure out if that practice is a good candidate for what they're doing. This is very exciting. It's part
Very.
of making America healthy again.
Yep.
And again, we're on a mission to normalize this approach to health and wellness, and not to continue normalizing and patronizing the system that has actually contributed to sickness and disease for way too long in this country.
Yep. I agree. It's a
Yeah.
compromised system. A lot of good people stuck in it. So there's a new system coming.
Yes. And so Lisa Gray says, She says, "Thank you." She says, "Oh, I just got a corner piece to my puzzle." Yeah. So, exactly, and so this is why we do this. As you know, my listeners, one of my passions is to help you walk into your destiny and to give you the tools to do that. And this is today's show is a great example of that, because you don't know what you don't know, and most of you are committed to learning and to furthering your knowledge and to having the wisdom to take that and to apply it. And that's all you can ask,
Yep.
is that you take steps one day at a time toward wholeness. And I want to encourage everybody to do that because as we go into this next year, it's so exciting what we are anticipating. I mean, there's kind of a thrill in the air about the future, and I want all of you to be able to participate fully in that, and that means having optimal health. And I'm urging you, reach out to Dr. Troy to set up a discovery call. Don't wait until the first of the year. There's no reason to. Things happen fast over these last weeks of the year,
Yeah.
so just get the ball rolling. Call them today, uh, send them a message, fill in the form. It's not going to happen overnight. So get the process going so that you can hit the ground running when the new year hits. So that you're not one of those people that's just making a fly by night resolution, but that you're actually digging in and committing to get solutions. That's what I want to encourage everybody to do. And I'm going to shout out that phone number one more time. I know people like to just make a phone call: 651 209 9906. 651 209 9906. And you can also find that right here on the screen if you didn't get a chance to write it down. I'll say it one more time: 651 209 9906. Operators are standing by. Uh, so, Dr. Troy, is there anything else that you want to add? Oh, gosh, here's a good one. Grand mal seizures. Have you had any success with those?
Yes, yeah, not all of them. Some of them are pretty tricky. It depends on the root cause of the seizures, depends on the age of the patient. So the younger the patient, the more success we've had. And so there are, it can to find the root cause for the grand mal can be very, very challenging. So, and it depends what the trigger is. Some things are more permanent injury or damage. So, it really depends on the root cause. But yeah, we have had success
Mhm.
with those.
So, Bella on X has a statement, a question, and I can't reply in the chat on X, so I'm gonna just shout out to Bella. Thank you for watching and participating in the conversation. She says, "I've pursued functional doctors for 35 years, but now my blood work with Hashimoto's is stumping them.
Mm,
Sounds like I need to reach out to you. Thank you for your kingdom motives for finding root causes." He's
yep,
helping me with my Hashimoto's. That's my primary issue,
yep.
and the mutation, the MTFHR. So, Bella, please do. It's officialsynapse.com is his website, and you can find it also through my website, marygracemedia.com. Definitely, check it out. And like I said, get that history. Start thinking about your medical history so that you can give him all of the pieces that he might need. Dr. Troy, is there anything you want to finish out with as we go into the Christmas season and the new year for our listeners?
Just a message of hope. We have a new system coming, and for people like Bella, there is an answer to every single problem, and so it's very, very important to just know that there's some good change coming. There's a new healthcare system coming where the people who have been suppressed, that have had results, are about to have a new playing field where we can actually look at, can we continue to get good results? Are they duplicatable? And what happens when we have funds that pour into research with how we're operating? What's possible when it's going through the filter of a God-given body? And I'm just so excited about what's coming.
Yeah.
And I know that all things are possible through God, and there is an answer to every problem. We're about to enter a season of revelation, a season of healing, and complete change. And I'm so excited to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward. I've always said this in the past, but I'm looking forward, and I'm trying to put myself out of business, meaning teaching people so much that they
Yeah,
don't need me is
yeah.
one of my goals. And I think that operating a healthcare system that actually operates that way would be phenomenal.
That's fantastic. Thank
Yeah,
you, Dr. Troy. Before we go, I do want to make one announcement to all of my listeners. As you know, I have been actively pushing out information to help the victims of Hurricane Helene down in North Carolina and in East Tennessee and other areas. There is a special event happening this Tuesday in Avery County, North Carolina, at the Avery County Airfield, right there in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. This is the first part of a documentary series that my good friend Ann Vandersteel has created. She's been boots on the ground down there documenting what's been going on. General Flynn will be there as well. This is a free screening, and it is a film called Ground Zero, North Carolina. It starts at 6 p.m., and the website for that is americanmadefoundation.org/movie. Americanmadefoundation.org/movie. I have it up on my Facebook. I will also share it on X. You can also go to Ann Vandersteel's timeline on X. I am hoping to be there. I think I will be there, and General Flynn will be there, Ann Vandersteel will be there, and that's an opportunity if you're in that area to go and support the work that the people down there are doing. It's local, it's boots on the ground. Anything that you bring or donate at that time will go directly to the victims of Hurricane Helene in the mountains of North Carolina. That is Tuesday, the 17th at 6 p.m. at the Avery County Airport Airfield Hangar in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. So I wanted to get that out there. It is a special event. It's a free screening of the film, and it's going to be fantastic. So thank you everybody for being here, and we will see you back very soon. And thank you again, Dr. Troy. It's always so much value and such wonderful information, and we're so happy and blessed to have you here. We benefit so much from everything that you give us. So
absolutely.
thank you again. Everybody have a great day, and get outside, touch some grass, look at the sky, and clear your head and breathe in fresh air and look at natural light. Those are some of the best things you can do. I know it's cold in some parts of the country, but do it anyway. We will see you back here very soon. Everybody have a great day. Take